chance of securing a DNA sample which could identify the murderer. Police scientist Gene Johnson knew how important this evidence would be.
I remember being able to look at the slide, and there weren't a lot of spermatozoa on there, but there certainly were several. And I knew if there were several, there was a chance, even if the evidence was decades old, that I might be able to get a DNA typing profile.
2 other samples taken from victims in the river had also been tested by Jean's colleague. She'd matched exactly the DNA profile she'd extracted to a saliva swab taken from one of the police's prime suspects. Jean and her colleague watched as the results came through.
She knew that it matched it, so she was just jumping around in that room. She was just so excited. And I started to share her excitement because I could see that it was going to be another matching profile.
Matt Haney was working for another police department when he got a call to come back to King County and hear the news.
They sat me down and they said, "It's Gary." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "The DNA evidence came back, and it's definitely Gary. And we want you to come join. It's a secret task force. You can't tell anybody." And of course, my mind is racing, and you have this elation of, finally, we're going to be able to do something.
On November 30, 2001, King County Police waited to arrest Gary Ridgway as he left his place of work.
The doors pop open, and the detectives jump out and say, "Gary Ridgway?" He says, "Yes." They tell him, "You're under arrest for the murder of 4 women connected to the Green River case." And he doesn't say anything except, "Okay." And he gets into the van. They handcuff him, pat him down. He gets into the van, and they drive off. And the next thing I hear is, over the radio, is, "1 in custody." Over.
But Gary Ridgway claimed he was innocent, and Ridgway's lawyers were building up a strong case. Mark Prothero was part of the defense team.
The fact that his DNA was found in a prostitute that he'd had sex with was not proof that he killed that prostitute. It was proof that he'd had sex with them in proximity at the time they were killed, and certainly suspicious, but it wasn't arguably proof that he'd been the actual murderer.
The DNA evidence they hoped would catch Ridgway was not enough. The police needed more for a conviction. They needed to link Ridgway directly with the murders, and their best hope to do this was with the help of microscopy, the analysis of minute particles through a microscope. The police reached out to Skip Palanek and his team of experts who have a worldwide reputation in this field.
We called him to work on a number of, I guess what you call high-profile cases over the years.
Skip was asked to look again at items of clothing taken from the victims, and more importantly, ligature used to strangle them. Would he be able to find particles so tiny that they were missed first time around? And would he be able to match them with particles found on Ridgway's clothing?
All of a sudden, what we start finding in this dust, this fine dust, is little particles of paint, but not just any paint, spherical particles of spray paint. Particles which were maybe sometimes 80 micrometers, 100 micrometers, 50 micrometers in diameter. Why do all these women have in this fine dust in their clothing microscopic spheres of spray paint? They weren't members of the Greater Seattle Area's Women's Graffiti and Spray Paint Club. They had no good reason for having spray paint on their clothing, particularly multiple colors. When we go further and we then analyze this paint to determine its chemical composition, what do we find? But that it's a type of paint that has recently been introduced by the DuPont company called Imron.
Skip traced the particles of Imron paint to its manufacturer, DuPont, who listed the companies they supplied. The biggest customer was Kenworth, the plant where for 30 years Gary Ridgway spray-painted trucks.
You like a refill?
The links to Ridgway were indisputable now for 7 of the murders. Time for Prothero and the defense team to change tack.
So that then began our discussion of exploring Plan B, which is, if you did this, tell us everything you can in the hopes of seeing if the prosecutor will drop the death penalty.
Ridgway asked to talk to Prothero in secret.
I remember it vividly on April 11th of 2003 when he told us in his conversation, I killed them all. He would have sex in the rear entry position, and when he climaxed, he would think of something to get the young woman to lift her head up, at which point he would wrap his arm around their neck and choke them to death.